Hey everyone, if you're thinking about buying a home, avoid this mistake that is often overlooked by home buyers. Hi, it's Melissa Ballman with Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices and Utah Homes by Melissa. If you're thinking about buying a home, today we're going to talk about closing costs. So, what's included in closing costs for a home buyer? This is often overlooked and it can really add up and be a costly mistake for buyers to not count on closing costs. Okay, so let's talk about some of the common closing costs. You're going to have costs at closing that are associated with your loan, such as prepaid interest until the first of the following month after you close, any loan origination fees that your lender charges you. You may, depending on the lender, have to pay your appraisal fee at closing. Some lenders require you to pay it at the time the appraisal is ordered, so that just varies on each lender. Another big cost that people forget about with their closing fees is property taxes. So Utah pays property taxes each year. So when you get a home loan, you're going to have to pay for your portion of the property taxes. Sometimes that can be up to 11 months, depending on when you're buying your house. So don't underestimate those property taxes that have to be paid in advance and not monthly. You also are going to have title insurance. Both a buyer and a seller are required to have a title policy at closing, and usually the buyer pays for their own and the seller pays for their own title policy. But you also are going to have recording fees that go to the recorder's office included in your title fees. These can typically, depending on the purchase price, run you a couple of $1,000s potentially. Now, if you're buying in an HOA, you have more fees that you're going to have to pay at closing. So they're typically going to require at least 1 month of HOA dues. Most HOAs, I can't think of any in Utah that don't charge some sort of a transfer fee. Now that transfer fee and who pays it is going to be negotiated in your purchase contract at the time of your offer. So understand what that means at the time of your offer for your transfer fee and your special assessments that may become due at closing. So some subdivisions are only a couple of $100s for a transfer fee. And some communities, such as Daybreak, it's actually 0.5% of your sales price. So that can be a couple $1,000s at closing just for your HOA transfer fees as well. Okay, another closing cost to count on is homeowners insurance premiums. You've got the house, but now you need the insurance on it. The homeowners insurance, also keep in mind right now, in 2020, we've been having quite a few earthquakes in Utah. So make sure that if you're going to want insurance for earthquake, that you add that onto your policy before you purchase the home. So when are closing costs due? When you go to sign all of the documents as a home buyer, you're going to get a breakdown of what your closing costs are, and they will have a line item on each thing. Now, most of the time you are going to wire transfer that money to the title insurance prior to you going in and signing. So typically a title company will get a breakdown of those costs and fees at least 24 hours in advance of closing, or at least the day before closing, so you have time to wire that over. So make sure you check with your title company the day before you're set to sign to make sure you get that figure of what you need to transfer to them for those closing fees. Oftentimes people will ask, well, can we negotiate closing fees into the sale of the home? Maybe. And what I mean by that is it really depends on if it's a buyer's market or a seller's market, what kind of offer you're making, but it's not completely unusual, especially right now, even though it's a seller's market, that they are paying or giving some sort of concessions for closing fees. So I have a buyer under contract right now that offered right at sales price, but also asked for $2,000 in closing costs to be paid for by the seller. So it can be negotiated, but you need to take each offer and each situation into account. I would not advise you on a blanket statement to always ask for closing costs, because that may actually hurt you and not get your offer accepted. Can closing costs be included in your loan? Maybe. That is definitely a question you need to talk to your lender about. And I would suggest you do it prior to going down the road of making an offer and going through inspection and appraisal and all of that. Make sure you have all your ducks in a row before you get to that, and ask your lender if closing costs can be included in your loan. If you'd like this video, check out my other videos about home buying. Also, you can download my free home buyer's guide. Just click the link below to request a free home buyer's guide that I have. I will see you next week, and if you have any questions real estate related, don't hesitate to reach out to me.